live action, and I didn't know this until today, which is really cool. They're making a live action version of a sci-fi series called The Three Body Problem.
That's the one I was gonna make. I was hoping you would bring that up. I watched that trailer. I had, I'm in on that, dude.
Dude, it's made by Benioff and Wise that made Game of Thrones. Has
Maybe
some
this is
of
part of my rehabilitating to forgive them.
Yeah, it has some of the Game of Thrones actors in it. The guy who played Samwell Tarly, he's one of the main characters. It looks really good, and I love those books. So I'm hoping they do. I hope they knock this one out of the park.
Are those graphic novels or books?
Uh, believe they're books.
Oh, okay, I won't be reading them. I stopped reading. But I'm
I
just
don't
dude.
think they.
The trailer for this one. What was the oh, life finds life or something like that, or life searches for life or something. That was a good tagline. I'm like, I'm in for this, man. This looks excellent. So that was one of the things that got me to turn my head for TUDUM, because most of it I was like,
Because I haven't actually read these books, but I've like listened to everything. I listened to this guy on YouTube that talks about like the Dune stuff from Frank Herbert, and he talks about the three body program. He talks about the problem a lot. So I've learned a lot of it through his videos. And oh my God, that is an interesting story. It has to do with this VR game that takes over people's thought processes, and people get lost in this VR game. I mean, it's really relevant. It's really cool.
let me read this real quick. Senior nerd. I don't think I know. I know who you are. Literally do not understand why fans still want the current DC films to continue. It definitely needs a hard reboot. No more Snyder stuff. That's your opinion. That's like me going into your viewing queue and saying, you know what, senior nerd, I think these 3 movies on your top 3 are shit. That's subjective. I mean, that's your opinion. The fact that there are people who want it to continue would show you demand. Now, me, I don't need them to continue. Be honest with you, if they never do another one again, that's on them. I think business model wise, I just spent 90% of the show. If I'm the one running the business and I want you to trust me ever again, then I complete the circle and show you that I can complete something. And if it's not this, they're going to have to come up with something. Be honest with you, before a lot of people put their money down. And that's why I say build a foundation on HBO Max. I'm just going to call it HBO Max from then, where you start out something. Even if you start with brand new, say you start with brand new, everybody's in these characters. I think you should start it on HBO Max and give it some time for people to trust you and show you that you can go the full measure with whatever you're doing before I pull big money out of my pocket for a family of 4 to go down to the cinemas and see you. That's why I think you should do it. Otherwise, I can get my end of the story. Give me a comic book or a graphic novel, any way you want to give me. I'll take it. I don't need to see it on the big screen anymore. I don't need it to be part of this anymore. Give it to Jay Oliva, make a cartoon, or give it to Jim Lee and make a graphic novel or 12-issue maxi series. I'm fine with that. But the question is why the company is in peril. That is why, because that there's you kind of screwed your customer. You may not have liked that, but enough people did, to the point where your customer is speaking. It's not up to you. It is not for you. It is not necessary for you or to understand why they want that any more than it is up to me to understand why anybody would endure Howard the Duck or Dudes, Where's My Car? They do, and that's just what it is.
And again, that's the legacy. That's the legacy of the first ever live action JL movie, is that we had to go through the horrible version to get the real one first, and 2 sequels planned with Darkseid coming. The studio is refusing to move on. It's like that's going to be the lingering question, for time immemorial until that is addressed in some form or fashion.
Yeah, and why? And I say it over and over again. While you have the reboot tool in your toolbox, no one's ever going to trust you not to use it again. It's like the nuclear bomb. You dropped one nuclear bomb on a country, and we've been scared shitless that one of them is going to drop again for the past 80 years. No one trusts each other.
Luckily, that's been the reason why we haven't had a nuclear war over the last 80 years.
Yeah, but
mutually
look what
assured
it did,
destruction.
It was on everybody's mind for all of our lives now, because
and it has it, and it's really made other countries not trust America, which
so you can't really. And even like I said, and everybody says, well, let's move on from Snyder stuff. Okay, fine. I would have been fine in 2016, 2017 with you moving on from Snyder stuff if you gave me something to move on to. And all these people that are saying reboot, they're thinking within like an inch of right here. To what? What's because you guys are going to whine about this too. The same people who whined and made them change course then are the same type of people that are going to make James Gunn. They're going to be whining about. So what do you do then when you inevitably run into any adversity? What are you going to do then? At what point, do you just settle down and finish something?
Mm-hmm.
So, and again, that's what again I mentioned this earlier. Without, I'll leave this unspoiled, but there is again something that happens in the Flash that involves fixing stuff that I think it so encapsulates everything we've gone through since the diversion from the initial plan and just trying over and over and over to just patchwork something new into the midst of that. It's like, again, William knows exactly what I'm talking about, but again, I feel it's almost enough to make me feel like Andy Muschietti put that in there as like an intentional kind of metaphor for everything we've had to go through as DC fans these last few years.
This is a question I really, really want to answer, and I think I've answered it before, but here's the thing, and this is the corporate mentality too. Under the old dinosaur rules of cinema and movie making, we think that if you spend this amount of money, you have to make this amount of money back. Because we're thinking of dinosaur logic. We're using the box offices. That's all we've known. That's all we've grown up with. And that's all these old men that run these studios have ever known. But what they're starting to learn now, and Netflix beat a lot of them to it, Game of Thrones and all that beat a lot of them to it, is it's not a dollar for dollar thing. If I spend 200 million, 250 million on The Irishman, I don't need to make that back in the theater. Why? Because it adds value to my streaming service. My streaming service, if I keep those numbers consistent, is pulling in 1.2 billion a month. There is no movies. There is no collection of movies that is going to get me that money. And then when you look at Netflix stock, it's not just a dollar for dollar gain. Their stock, Netflix stock was at what, $445 a share? That is additional value to your company. The capital that you get lent to by the people who make these movies and the benefits you get from that is part of the value of the company that is immeasurable when you're trying to calculate it and quantify it by using, well, it has to make this amount of money in the theater. No, it has to add, for them, it has to have overall value, collective value to your streaming service. And if your streaming service is pulling in this amount of money, that is stability. Stability breeds money, because if you're stable, that's why the stock market goes up and down based on stable and instability, things like that, those factors. If you're able to stabilize your factors, don't even matter about growth, because there's only so many people that can purchase streaming stuff and subscribe. You need to maintain your growth and your retention. Your retention is more important than anything. If you can retain things, if you can retain and keep yourself out at $1.5 billion every month as far as your streaming revenue goes, then that you can go back to your board members and say, you know what? I need you buying more stock. Your stockholders, I need you buying more stock. And that's how you increase your value way more. That's why some of these things, like the Stranger Things, the Game of Thrones, these things are worth way more to them and that platform, because they get all of that money. They get all of that money. So that's why you see, you could spend anywhere between 90 million to 150 million on something like that. And it is worth it, because you're not talking about a dollar for dollar. You're not talking about one movie. You're talking about what it brings to the collective of your movie going. Because if you have something that valuable that brings me to your streaming service, and the way Netflix and these streaming services are set up, they lead you to other things. As soon as I'm done with Stranger Things, they got me going to something else. And I'm one of those guys that are many that go into what they recommend. Sometimes I just leave it and let it play. So all of a sudden, what do you have now? You've watched something that brought you to the streaming service in value, and all of a sudden now, 5-6 months down the line, you no longer are unsubscribing anything. You're not churning through. And that consistency alone is worth more to them than any movie ticket they could ever sell you. And now multiply that on millions on top of millions. So you have to think of it as a collective value to the overall company, and not a dollar for dollar, ticket for ticket in a movie theater.
I mean, the trailer that we just got pulled down a minute ago for a bit, Rebel Moon. I mean, the budget for that is like equivalent to, like Man of Steel.
Yeah. Beryl, what's this? Will, what was your MOS? Oh, my original MOS was 55 Bravo, which was ammunition specialist. That transferred over to 89 Bravo when they made it as part of the transportation corps. I was a heavy mechanic in the National Guard. I had a non-assigned MOS, which was network satellite. Well, I was part of the S2 and part of the S4 as well. So I went everywhere, but my main primary MOS that allowed them to attach me to units was 89 Bravo, which was ammunition specialist and ordnance disposal. So there you go. I thought she meant man of steel. I'm like, oh, that's Army talk.
Hold on, William. I'll go ahead and go through the chats now.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I
No
had to
problem.
step away. I had to step away for a minute. Let's see here. Okay, so that was Bell's. Thank you for the $1.99, Bell. By the way, we appreciate you. Let's see. Number says, "Are we having a spoiler discussion of the Flash?" We did briefly earlier.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that
So
happened a while back.
When you're looking back and you see the scroller, the spoiler scroller, we're talking spoilers at that point.
Okay, that's that. Aaron Pritchard says she's looking forward to Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah, they got a lot.
Yeah, and it's like, my God, that William, if you haven't seen the 2010 movie, that almost might. I'm wondering if, like, that might have been enough to make you say it's like, yeah, that one needed a reboot. That one is,
dude.
That was
one,
so damn.
I've heard about it.
It was trash. Okay,
Wow.
so I got into the Avatar: The Last Airbender stuff because my daughters were watching it when they were younger, and I ended up liking the animated show quite a bit, and I also liked the next one, the Korra stuff, which was really good. So I'm kind of looking forward to this live action stuff. I mean, the actors look appropriate to the characters.
They look exactly like they showed. I looked at the book. I have it here. I looked at it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Let's say they didn't in the first movie.
That bad, huh?
Yeah. Well, they were whitewashed. A lot of the characters were whitewashed in the original movie. So yeah, they were not ethnicity appropriate. Let's just say that. Aaron Pritchard says, "Is anyone here excited for the Archie's movie?" I'm kind of mixed on this because it's got an ethnic cast, which the original Archie stuff was not ethnic. So I don't know. I'll give it a look, see if it's interesting, because I did like the Archie comics back in the days. Let's see here. Chappie says, question, do you think that it was handled bad when they announced Henry Cavill back as Superman and then for them to announce that he'd no longer back? Yes.
100%.
It was horrible.
And
let him
go ahead.
To let him feel like he was coming back and then he has to, like, walk it back. I mean, we know it hurt his feelings, but he's too classy of a guy to say anything.
Yeah. And it's the exact thing we've been talking about on the stream, where it's like one hand giveth, the other taketh away. I mean, it's like he's there, he's gone, and that's been the cycle with DC, again, as you said, Dave, for 30 years, but then especially this last decade.
Well, and it reminded me that he should have never been gone in the first place. It's just a constant reminder.
Absolutely.
That he should have never been that absent. The Rock should have never been in a cameo in Black Adam, because he should have been in his own movie. The Rock should have been a cameo in his. But that's how you mishandle things. But all right, next one.
Okay, so next question, Chappie says, why do you think that making a Batgirl movie was a bad idea?
Because you hadn't settled the course where you were with Batman. And that's right there. And then, see, I don't mind these derivative characters, but you're putting them out there to fail if you have not stabilized the foundation that is your Trinity. The reason why these characters exist and why anybody gives a damn about them is because of Batman. The people anybody who cares about Supergirl only knows of Supergirl because of Superman. And it would be the same thing. If there was a Wonder Boy, the only reason why anybody, or Wonder Girl, the only reason why anybody knows of that derivative character is because of Wonder Woman. So if you'd have done these in support of and alongside, it would have been no problem. But you did them in lieu of, instead of, and that's where your problem was.
I mean, she was in the Ben Affleck Batman script. It's like, you want to do a Batgirl movie, like, spin it off of that if you want to.
Yeah.
So that's why. All right, next one.
Next one, Patrick Child says, I really do get annoyed when internet experts who claim they know what a movie needs to make in order to be profitable. It gets kind of annoying myself. to be honest with that.
It takes the
I
fun
don't
out
know.
of so much discussion about these things where it just boils down to whether something's, a grand slam or not.
Yeah. And to be honest with you, listen, I know people, I sat with people that were critics in slash screening that was at the other night, and I don't hate critics. I just don't have much of a use for them because people, and like I said, in another very famous YouTuber, the critics are very important because you wouldn't buy a computer without getting expert opinion. You wouldn't buy a car. But here's the thing about this. I know I'm not an expert on, I am an expert on computers, but I know but the common person, most people are not expert on computers. I know I'm not a mechanic. I know I'm not an expert on cars other than engaging with them. I am an expert on what I like as far as movie goes. Every moviegoer is. Every movie person knows what they like. Everybody knows what kind of nerves these movies put. So I don't need someone else's expert opinion whose criteria is different than mine when it comes to the enjoyment of a movie. And I think it's tragic that people use these as a disproportionate tool to determine whether they're going to spend their hard-earned money and invest their hard-earned time to go to this on somebody whose sensibilities movie going may not even be anywhere near yours. So I don't have very much use for the whole critic game. I have no use for the online critic game because I think the internet has become a tool to cook movies and cook the fun out of movies. They bake the fun out of movies. I love the internet, but I think we sit and we stare at the screen and we bounce off bad opinions and bad ideas off of each other, and they become reality. Get up, get out. If you think a movie might be to your liking, if the trailer grabbed you, go see it. Be your own critic. Unless the critics are going to pay for your movie and going to reimburse your time, and they cannot do that. They get in for free. And they're going on to another movie. They may see 2 or 3 movies in a week, whereas that's your one movie. So how you feel about that movie is not relevant to what Rotten Tomatoes and everybody else says. Unless they're going to pay for your movie and give you your time back if you don't like it, because it's gone the other way around. This is not just a Flash thing. There's been movies I regretted listening to critics about because I stayed home. Back when I knew better, I stayed home saying, you know what, they said that movie's crap. Ended up seeing it on HBO. Ended up seeing it on Showtime. I'm like, wow, this would have been much cooler on a bigger screen. But I listened to some guy who wasn't even aligned with the kind of movie going I went to.
See,
So,
what
you
that
know,
goes into, like with me, I learned not to put too many expectations in anything that I go to watch these days because less chance of getting disappointed, and it allows me to enjoy a movie better. I've also stopped listening to. I mean, I haven't really listened to critics most of my life, to be honest, but I I like to go to a movie and think about it for myself instead of having somebody else tell me how it is. I mean,
that's where I'm at.
my brother told me all about the Flash this week, but I'm still going to make my own decisions on it. You know what I'm saying? Like it's I'm not going to let my decisions and what I think of a movie or a TV series or whatever be colored by what somebody else thinks about it because we all think differently.
Yeah. It's all almost subjective, and it's not. Sometimes it's not even about the movie that makes you like a movie. It's what was happening, where you were at in life, who you went with, the company you were with. I could see a crappy movie and still have a great opinion and great memory about it. That's not connected to a critic because of the fact that I was with a group of people. I've seen a lot of movies with army buddies that I thought were kind of stupid, but in the context that I was watching them in, I felt good about that movie, and I may review that movie differently. Does that mean anything to anybody else? No. And that's why, I just don't have much of a use for these guys. And I don't think, to be honest with you, I know studios have to use them, but I think studios should be a lot more stringent on what they get from them. Because there's been some critic scores, and if you read some of these guys, there's nothing that they're giving you, in my opinion, that is a useful tool for you to go forward with. So that's just me. All right, next one.
Okay. Lee Marvin here says, "Is Flash 2 not happening anymore?" We don't know.
If you want to go based on box office, I would say no. But here's the thing: the only thing James Gunn ever did for DC Comics or DC Films lost $21 million. He's running DC. They hired Andy Muschietti and gave him a first look contract. And they didn't really care. They weren't really caring about what the Flash's box office. They're not going to rescind that. They gave him Brave and the Bold. They're not going to rescind that. So I don't know if that is their criteria for if somebody. And to be honest with you, there's a pattern there because Shazam got a sequel out of barely breaking. I don't even think Shazam broke 400 million, and it got a sequel. So the rhyme or reason of whether something gets a sequel is not always there. So couldn't answer that for you, Lee.
I'm sure there's some analytics that they follow besides money, but we have no rhyme or reason to it. But the people who I understand people saying you got to make back double what your budget was to make a profit, because that is true. But the people that are now like moving the goalposts and saying, "Oh, it has to make 3 times the profit or 3 times the amount or whatever,"
make 700, 800, dude.
All of these people who are pushing these IPs to they have to make $1 billion to be profitable. No, they don't, because there's something you guys aren't seeing here, and this is something companies think about, especially the companies that have the marketing, merchandising. They're not just making money off of what that movie makes in the public.
Yeah.
In the box office. They're also considering the merchandising that comes out of that movie. And the merchandising sometimes is what really counts when it comes to these movies.
POBD, too. It's $20 to rent a movie on POBD, and a lot of these movies do really well on POBD. And once again, I guarantee you, this time next year, The Flash, and maybe less, The Flash is going to be leading in AEW Dynamite. And guess what? There's going to be commercials. And now, holy cow, because I inquired about getting commercials during AEW. That ain't happening. Whew. You can get your commercial, from what I heard from Cox, you can get your commercial so that it's picture in picture, so that, you know how they go picture in picture on the wrestling match? You can get your commercial so that there's a wrestling match going on in your picture. So they're going to collect cash on that one. And they sell them to the cable companies at a discount in mass volume so that the cable companies can turn around and sell it to us for a profit. So that ad revenue is astronomical. That's why that's why syndication, you can make so much money on syndication in second run, because of ad revenue. People will flip on these movies and let their kids watch them.
And that's a good point, too. That's another thing, like you said, people aren't thinking about. What they make on streaming for these movies, what they make on like you said, ad revenue for these movies when they put them on network, what they make in the VOD and the DVD and the Blu-ray market. There's a lot of things to consider when you're coming to think about how much a movie makes a company. It isn't just what they make at the box office, people. It's just not. It's what they make in merchandising. It's what they make in DVD sales, Blu-ray sales. It's what they make in streaming. It's what they make. I mean, this is all something you have to consider. That's why we're having a strike right now in Hollywood to begin with.
Exactly.
Because all of these numbers are not getting to these writers. The residuals and stuff from all of this is not getting to these writers. So the money that's being made is not getting to the right people. It's all being held onto by the production companies, by these big companies,
And streaming is huge on that, because some of these deals that these actors and actors sign, and all these other people and their bonuses and stuff, I think a lot of that stuff is connected to theatrical. I don't know if they're getting a cut of these other revenues, and that's what these studios want. That's why they're moving so fast to get them into the streaming, because the longer it sits there, every dollar they make, they get less up, 35% or 33% to the theater, and everybody else gets their cut. So that $1 billion that everybody banshees about, the studio's not getting all that. They want as much of it as they can get. And they can get it if they can get it on their streaming service. They may not get $1 billion up front, but they will get the value, the overall quantifiable value to their streaming service is not something that you can measure in the types of dollars and cents that it costs. So, like I said, you could justify a sequel of The Flash just based on other factors.
Well,
like I said.
And it doesn't just go for like movies and stuff too. I've had this argument with the comic book people on Twitter. They don't want to consider the digital market for comic books. There's actually money being made there. You have DC Unlimited, you have Marvel Universe, you have DC Universe Infinite, you have Marvel Unlimited. I subscribe to both of those services, and they make money. And speaking of that, by the way, William, you know how I told you about that X-Men thing back a while ago, the 60th anniversary stuff? Check this out. I finally got what I want on the thing back in.
Don't get us kicked off the internet. Okay. Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I remember you showing me. That's pretty cool.
So I'm going to do an unboxing of it on my channel in a day or two. But yeah, it finally
You're gonna
came
take
in.
out of the box, you loser. No, I'm just kidding. Just
Actually,
kidding.
the way this is packaged, there's like no plastic in there at all. It's just this box, and they're wrapped in like a cellophane. It's not even cellophane. It's like butcher paper almost.
Okay, can we? Let's get Lee Marvin's got a. You highlighted Lee Marvin's question. I really want to answer that before I forget.
Yeah, hold on.
Uh,
Let me pull
yeah,
up my
because
cell phone camera.
Well, and also I need. William, I need to. I mentioned the date. I also need to go ahead and hop off in
all right,
minute
man.
here. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was glad to jump on and discuss the Flash and TUDUM and Rebel Moon and all that jazz. And yeah, just happy to be on and discuss all this anytime. So yeah, everybody want to kind of follow my stuff. I'm on Twitter and Vero at Brad Curran. You can also find my writing on Screen Rant and Kung Fu Kingdom. And yeah, I'm just those places you can find me and find my work discussing all things the Flash, DC, martial arts, action movies, all that jazz.
All right, man.
Cool,
Thanks
man.
for coming on, Brad. We appreciate having you on.
My pleasure. Take care, guys.
All right.
You too.
Okay.
All right, let me get to the super chat really quick, and then we'll answer the Lee Marvin question.
Cool.
I got another $5 coming from Fourth 1000. Thank you, Fourth. The ancillary markets are profitable, but still didn't help DC despite MOS and BVS being the 35th and 40th highest grossing Blu-rays.
No, it didn't help because of their mentality. Smart people would have taken advantage of that. Stupid people didn't. If you would have had the right people in charge of the company at that time, they would have definitely been able to take advantage of that. I can't speak for what stupid people didn't do. So, and they were idiots.
Okay, so you wanted the Lee Marvin question, you said?
Yeah, thanks for this $5 super chat, though. Right? Okay.
Do you think it's a good idea to shelf the next two upcoming DC films?
On a mathematical business level, no, because that's just more content you can shove onto your streaming service, and you can take it out. You can take it out in 30 days and put it back, so it's still going to be content that goes onto your service, and you already have it. I mean, I would have said that way, a year ago, but since they've already gone forth with the biggest of those movies, you might as well go ahead and I would have done something different with them, but on a business end, you might as well just go ahead and get it in the theater, let it make as much of its production budget back as far as that goes, since you've already written the movie off. Like I said, you've already assumed the loss. You've already put the loss on the loss sheet, so why not go ahead?
All right.
Patrick Shields is right up there. Yeah, okay.
Numbers says, by the end of the theater run, how much do you think it'll make worldwide in the box office? He's talking about Flash. 100 to 300, 300 to 600, or 600 to 800?
I don't know. Because Aquaman, some of these movies opened up with some mediocre numbers and still have rewatchability. I'd be able to ask me that question after next week, because like I said, most of your movies pull in most of their money within the first 2 weeks. Or ask me in week 3 if it's still pulling in a decent amount of money. I couldn't tell you, because it does have rewatchability, and I actually have to see what's going on tomorrow night when the international numbers come in to even make, because this conversation that I'm having right now might be foolish. Who knows how much it pulled over there? So give back to me in a couple of weeks numbers.
Patrick Child says, is there anyone at WB who is all in on streaming? Zaslav doesn't seem to be.
Casey Bloys, the chief content officer of HBO Max. Zaslav, listen, I'm not going to call Zaslav a liar because I don't know him. I think there are certain executives that tell people who are entrenched in certain industries what they want to hear to keep the ship from capsizing. I think there's no way in hell that Zaslav is not prioritizing streaming. There's just too much money in it. And the money they get the majority of the dollar. You can make you make $1 billion in the theaters, golf clap, congratulations. But they don't get all that money.
To be honest with you, I think he said that just to be hyperbolic.
I think he said that because there was a panic among CinemaCon about where the theaters are at. And I think he gave them some red meat, I think
he said what he needed to say. That's all I'm going to say about that.
And I won't call him a liar. He gave them the truth that they needed to hear. I'll say that. But I think, yes, is there anybody at WB streaming? Yeah, I think his name is David Zaslav. And then you have the official guy who's Casey Bloys. I think he's still there. All right.
Hold on. Belle says, I know all about 89 Bravos. I worked with him downrange, is what she said.
Yeah, and that's where we were at. We were not only the ones having stuff thrown at us, we were the people that were providing it and possibly getting blown up by it because we were working with 55 Deltas and 89 Deltas who were the EOD guys with their tap seats. Ooh, fun job that was.
All right. Chappie says, William, Thade, Brad, remember when we were going to get Wonder Twins and they were going to spend $75 million on that budget? Thank God that movie got canned.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And like I said, people are like, well, they're not going to spend this kind of money on streaming. Yeah, they are. When you truly understand what a top tier, once they reach their max subscribers, streaming bill, you can justify a lot. But I wouldn't have justified Wonder Twins. But the fact that Wonder Twins was even on the table shows you that where we are at. We were going to get Gleek the Monkey before we got Superman, another Superman movie. Let that sink in.
And our last question, and this probably should be our last question of the night because we've crossed the barrier.
Holy cow.
Why did David Zaslav choose James Gunn and Peter Safran instead of Michael DeLuca and Pamela Abdy? For one, James Gunn and Peter Safran work well together. James is the creative side of it. Peter is the business side of it. And he was talking on Michael Rosenbaum's show the other day. And he was talking about how well he works with Peter, how well they complement each other and everything. So that's my answer, William.
I think he wanted a visionary. He kind of saw what Marvel was doing. He wanted a storyteller, and he looked at what James Gunn done. I probably looked at the Suicide Squad, even though it bombed. It was a really good movie and a really good story. I think he wanted a storyteller connection and not necessarily an executive connection, and that's what they are more executives than anything else. And I guess that the pitch that he gave them wowed him better than the pitch that DeLuca and Abney gave him. I wish he'd have made a different decision. Like I said, I do want James Gunn on board. I do believe in James Gunn's ability to do this. I just think that Zaslav, I don't think that the situation is going to help anybody. I think sometimes the right decision wrapped in the wrong circumstances, it still turns out bad. I hope it turns out well. I'm just looking at it right now, and I'm just seeing it's like you're aiming a 747 straight towards the ground from 30,000 feet, and then you're abandoning the plane and telling someone else, here, you go ahead and take over. It takes a lot to get that plane, if you ever do get it black, to the point where it can fly straight again. And I think that could be where DC is. So there you go. Is that the last question? All right, guys. So clarify my position for my trolls. I don't need the Snyderverse to come back. In fact, in this environment, I no longer want it to come back. Give me the comic book. Give me the sock puppets. Give me the claymation. Give me the ending. But I don't think I don't think that's what everything hinges on. And I don't think that the reboot tool is what everything should hinge on either. Because once again, we are where we are at because of the disruption and lack of cohesiveness of the project. So what's the cure for that? More disruption? I don't know. I think that they should just take this stuff, and if you're going to start over from scratch, do it in a format that gives you all the advantages. Do it on a format that gets you that product from your brain to your customer's eyesight. If somebody gives you a 2 tomato score or whatever, or a sour or whatever, Rotten Tomato score, it's not going to, your customer's not going to get it, because you know why? If you put it on the streaming platform, and eventually to get it to the big screen, but if you build it on a streaming platform, here's what ratings mean to people. Here's what critic scores mean to people. Whether they should invest their time into it. If you give me a crappy, rotten review, I may never even see that. You know why? Because I'm not trying to judge whether I should spend my gas money and my ticket money and bring the family and the mistress and everything else to the theater. I'm no longer, it's no risk. I'm no longer needing that tool to decide whether I take that risk. I can just pick up this remote. I can aim it at that thing. And if I don't like it after 15 minutes, I can turn it. So you've cleared the clutter so that it's just you and the customer. And now all they got to do is aim it and click it. And if they like it, they come back. And if you do it on HBO Max and you make it an event every Sunday night, just like we're talking about who got whacked on Sopranos. Oh, wow. Exactly. Did you see that? Oh, who lost their head? Who got burned? Who's doing who or what on Game of Thrones? Did you see that? That is what we need to build for DC. We need to build the anticipation, and we need to build the trust, and we need to build the wow factor. And you need to do it in a more frequency than a movie every other year or every 3 years or whatever. You need to be doing that shit 10 episodes a week, and then you need to be moving into something else. You need to have a whole entire platform planned out. So when I'm done with this, you're doing that. And when we're done with this, we're leading you into that. And when we're done with all of it, we think we got you on that cocaine, like Al Pacino sitting at the table with the yayo piled up to his nostrils. When we think we got you at that point of addiction, we're going to put it on the big screen because we got you now. You can
Exactly.
trust us. You saw us finish.
Really, this we should be, especially with streaming available to us, we should be seeing this like being a drug dealer. We really should.
Yeah, where's the yayo?
Hook 'em, give me the yayo, man.
Sorry for you guys who were recovering drug addiction.
Hey, Chi-Chi, get the yayo. Chi-Chi, get the yayo. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, do this thing.
Yeah, so those of you who are having substance abuse saw that. I'm sorry if I use that, but it's what I mean. So, all right, guys, that's it. We more than carried you over the threshold from what was Saturday into what is now Sunday, 12/23, 6/18/2023. I hope we've had a good discussion, whether you agreed with me or not. As long as you're willing to engage respectfully, I will try to do the same to you. That's it. That's where I stand. I wanted this stream to be somewhere where everybody who is misconstruing what I'm saying when I see them again or whatever platform to rewind all this stuff of how I feel about Zack Snyder's work, how I feel about the future of DC, how I feel about James Gunn. You have it here now. You have it here. Stop lumping me in with these crazy extremist people who are absolutists. I'm not an absolutist. You could give me the finality of the dark side on the side of this Pepsi can. As long as I can read it, I'm down with it. I am concerned about the future of DC stuff, but it's out of my hands. I wish they would have handled things better. I wish the damage that had been done wasn't continuing to damage these good movies. The Flash is an excellent movie. Go see it. It's fun. It's great. I had a lot of fun into it. The CGI stuff didn't bother me at all, but I'm old school. I grew up with practical effects. Any CGI is going to be like Star Trek technology to me. So, but I saw it on the babies and all that, fine. But the baby scene was so spectacular that's not what I focused on. I focused on the fact that this shit was happening. And and all the other stuff that people were nitpicking about, that's fine if you noticed it. I didn't. And a lot of the people I went with, they noticed it, but it didn't destroy the movie for them. So
part of that though, and Muschietti tried to explain it, and people kind of cried it down and everything. Part of that he was saying was the way some of the CGI looked was because it's Barry seeing it through the Speed Force, Barry seeing it through his own eyes.
But don't never believe that. They just, like I said, you can analyze the fun out of anything if you want to. I decided to go to this movie and have fun, but I'm the guy who's like, and I hear people like, if I saw this movie, I'm not a true Snyder fan. Once again, you're in trouble when you're telling someone what kind of fan they are. You're
exactly.
In shit when you do that.
Exactly.
All right, guys. Thank you, everybody who participated in this night. Thank you, Brad from Screen Rant, for joining us. Thank you, Thade, for getting us kicked off the internet. I'm just kidding. That Netflix, shame on you. We're literally doing what you wanted us to do, and you copyrighted us. So
you tell us to share it, and then you hit us. Come on, guys.
All right, guys. That's it. Let me run my outro, which is my highlight of my night, and I will see you guys. I don't know if I'll see you tomorrow night. I'm really exhausted, but if I have the energy, you'll see me. If I don't, you won't. All right. See you.